Hello, and welcome to the U.S. History Online Instructional Module. Today's activity is a student-created multiple choice. Target standard will be number 6. Analyze the challenges faced by the first 5 presidents and how they responded. So, multiple choice has some drawbacks. We've all seen it, we've known it, we've done it, both as students and as teachers. For starters, it's hard to assess students accurately when we know they can make lucky guesses. Secondly, with multiple choice, students just put a letter on a page, or they may even use a Scantron, bubble in. They're not generating any ideas or content. They're not writing at all. And we know that these days the emphasis on writing makes this a problem. Also, the fact that there may be ambiguity in answer choices gives us some trouble, because students may know the content fairly well, but may be tripped up in a word here, even a comma there. It's tricky sometimes, and we want to be fair and accurate in our assessment, not rely on the ambiguity that may be inherent in certain wording of answer choices. But multiple choice shouldn't be demonized. In fact, there's a way to do it really, really well. Have students create their own. Here's how you have students create their own multiple choice items. First of all, you mandate a range of question stems. Don't let them simply rely on who, what, when. Make sure they're getting into higher order thinking skills with some how and why and cause and effect. In the answer choices, you've got to see a whole lot of realistic choices. All 4 answer choices should be pretty legitimate. It's not going to do any good if the student provides one fact for the correct answer and then a whole bunch of nonsense for the other 3. In fact, this is a chance to have them demonstrate their knowledge about 4 topics, as we'll see later. This is because they have to explain each answer choice. So we'll look at some examples in a moment, and you'll see that students don't just write the question or write the answers, they explain each answer choice, right or wrong. And there's where you're able to really assess how much they're engaging with the content. Here is a well-constructed example. You may want to pause the video and read the whole thing, but to give you a general idea here, we're trying to assess the student's knowledge of the War of 1812 and how it may be considered a win for the United States. Well, why would it be considered a win? The student has laid out 4 answer choices that are pretty reasonable. They are historically accurate just for a different topic. So if we look at A, because the U.S. gained a huge chunk of land from Mexico, well, that did happen, just in a different war. And so with each of these choices, you're going to see that the student has demonstrated knowledge. It's a little bit inaccurate for this topic on purpose, but that's the whole point, is that they're given 4 chances to show their knowledge, not only about the War of 1812, but about slightly different things as well. So how many birds are we killing with this one stone? Another example, what was the U.S. hoping to accomplish with the Monroe Doctrine? Again, feel free to stop the video and read all the choices, but what you'll see is that all 4 answer choices are pretty reasonable, pretty feasible. They all pertain to the time period. They all are historically factual, just about something else, not about the Monroe Doctrine. So the student is going to be showing his or her knowledge about Standard 6 as well as some other topics. Standard 7, for example, with the Indian Removal Act. Well, it's a legitimate question because if a student were to be answering this question, he or she would have to really know the topic. The other answer choices that are wrong, they sound pretty good, and they might ring a bell somewhere in their head, but of course there's only one that actually pertains to the Monroe Doctrine. So it's a very well constructed question and set of answers. Here's a poor example. Which of the following was a precedent set by George Washington as the first president of the United States? The reason why this is a poorly constructed question and answer is because only one of them is remotely close to George Washington. Answer choice A has to do with Lincoln. Way off, right? It's not going to be a very feasible distractor if the correct answer has to do with Lincoln. B, same thing. We're talking Cuba, communism, that's Kennedy. D, the Meat Inspection Act, that's 20th century. So if a student has any idea at all, if he or she were to look at this question, the answer would be very, very obvious. And we don't want to let them off the hook that easily. We want all four answer choices to be feasible and pertain to the era or the basic time period or topic as the question itself contains. So yes, C is correct, but a student might know virtually nothing about the topic and get it right simply because of an educated guess, and we don't want to allow that. So this question and answer set is poorly constructed. A moment ago we spoke of the drawbacks in multiple choice, and what we'll see here is that when you have students create their own, we are quickly escalating up Bloom's taxonomy. In fact, we might even reach the mountaintop. Producing new original work. Sounds a lot like what we're doing here, what we're asking the students to do. They are designing, they are assembling, they are constructing, they are developing, they are formulating, they are authoring. They're hitting just about every mark in that top category. They're doing some of the other skills we see toward the top half of the taxonomy as well. But the point is that everything we don't like about multiple choice, we're blowing it out of the water with this activity to have students create their own multiple choice. How do we score it? Let's say we've got students creating 10 multiple choice questions per standard, 5 or 10, depends on what your time frame is, depends on how you're going to use it, depends on how in-depth the standard is. Some are thinner than others, of course, but some basic rules apply when you're trying to assess it fairly. You want to address what are the topics that a student has included. Are we covering the entire standard or standards? Or are we constructing it more narrowly so that only certain topics are addressed, whereas several elements that are supposed to be targeted are ignored? Question stems. We want to see a variety. If you look in the advanced category, we see that fewer than 50% of the questions are what, who, or when, and even to hit proficient they're going to have to avoid repeating any question words. So we are insisting on variety and therefore requiring agility and breadth in our students' thinking. Answer choices. Again, we start with the proficient category. All 4 answers for each question are realistic and pertain to closely related topics. That's what you want. If they're able to do more, wonderful. We slide over to the advanced category and we see that they meet the proficient requirements, plus the answer choices are thorough, they're rich, they have more than one detail or fact. So a student can demonstrate her knowledge very well if meeting that advanced category. Similarly, for explanations at the bottom, to attain proficiency, a student would write all the answer choices in a way that they clearly indicate what makes them right or wrong. To achieve advanced, the explanations are going to be deeper. The explanations will include more than one detail or fact. So if you take a look at this whole rubric, what you're going to see is that it allows for a lot of creativity on the student's part. It allows them to write the questions in many different ways, but the bottom line that all of them have to deliver is that they're really engaging in the content, they're showing you what they know, and they're doing it in a precise way. And precision is one of the things we emphasize in our assessments. We don't want to be taking lucky guesses. We don't want to be shooting blindly in the dark. We want to assess the students in a precise way so we know exactly what they know. And by having them show us in this way, we achieve it. Student-created multiple choice. No longer do we need to think of multiple choice as something to be feared or nervous about or feel bad about, apologize for. We can do it really well in this way. If you really want to get creative, what you could do is have students take each other's assessments and come up with some sort of scoring system in which they're rewarded for good questions. And it would push the students to try to develop good questions so that their classmates have a legitimately challenging experience in trying to answer them. And so you're driving students to dig deeper into the content. So that's just sort of a bonus dimension you can tack on to this assignment. But even if you were to leave it at having the students write the questions and turn them in, then you've accomplished something pretty worthwhile. Student-created multiple choice.